and thank you for joining us for this episode of the State of Leadership Simple and Beyond. That is Robert Hilliard. I am Whitney Wiley, and we are here on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, talking all things leadership. And today we're diving into a topic that's close to both of our hearts, coaching. And specifically, we're going to be talking about executive coaching. So, we're going to explore why engaging with an executive coach might be the game changer you need for your leadership journey. And whether you're an aspiring leader or already at the helm, today's discussion is tailored just for you. So let's start with a couple of thought provoking questions. Have you ever felt stuck in your career or leadership role and unsure of what to do next? Or perhaps you're facing challenges that seem insurmountable. If either of those resonates with you, drop a comment in the chat because we would love to hear your experiences. We want this to be an engaging conversation, not just us talking at you, but having a conversation with you. A couple of more questions for you to ponder. Have you ever wondered how executive coaching might specifically benefit you or your organization? And so then the question is, what's holding you back from taking that step, right? Again, share your thoughts with us. Put them in the chat because we are here to demystify executive coaching together with you. So, um, we've got some insights for you. We'll be answering what are the most frequently asked questions that we get about executive coaching. We will be sharing stories from our coaching experiences and even discussing how to measure the ROI or the return on investment of coaching. So again, let's make this a conversation, not just Robert and I talking at you. So to kick things off, Robert, let's start at the top. Right? The probably the most common question is what exactly is executive coaching?
Mhm.
And then sort of an ancillary question to that. How can it transform leadership?
Well, okay. Well, the definition of executive coaching is really partnering with someone in a thought-provoking process that helps them create strategies or actions for their most important uh, challenges or goals that they have for themselves. I like to say that executive coaching boosts your processing power because you're working with somebody, and that additional brain power helps you consider things that you may not have considered before and look at things from different angles.
I like it. I like it. So I know you are branded as an executive coach. I
Mhm.
do some executive coaching. I haven't specifically branded myself that way. Um, but and I know that the questions that we're going to be discussing are primarily come from your experiences and others who are more in this executive
Right.
space. Um, but before we dive into a couple other of those, I'm just curious. This is for me, just between me and you, not like millions of people are watching or anything. What made you go into executive coaching? And I know a little bit about your story and some of the work that you did before you struck out on your own. But how did you get into executive coaching?
I got into everything in my career, I like to say accidentally. I was setting out to do one thing, and someone saw something or asked me to do something else, and I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I remember the day it happened. I was sitting at my desk working because I was a trainer, instructional designer, and trainer. I was designing a course that I was going to roll out into the organization, and my boss my then boss called me into the office and said, "Hey, you know what? I think you'd be a good executive coach." And I said, "Oh, okay." My usual answer. "Oh, okay." And then he said, he goes, "Well, what do you think about doing it?" I said, I'm up for the challenge." And he said, "Great, I have some people lined up for you." So he had already promised that I was going to do it. And had I said no, he was going to, I was going to be voluntold that I needed to do it anyway. So that's how I got involved in it. I had some experience with coaching before because I worked in another organization where I was coached by someone. So I had an idea about how it worked. I didn't have the real expertise. And I went ahead and started that way first. I read a book, tried to coach them, was not very effective, and came back and said, I need to go back and we need to pause this. I need to get some training and then come back and do this for the organization. And that's what I did.
And what did you find in those early days, aside from your having to acquire or strengthen your coaching abilities? What did you learn about executives or aspiring executives, leaders in those early days of your coaching?
One of the early one of my earliest revelations were that, and I knew this, but it wasn't as stark as when I first started engaging with people. These leaders, executives that I was working with, were stressed out.
Mm,
You look at some of the people that work for them, and you would see them being stressed out, or whatever. But the leaders had stressors coming from other places too. They just didn't always express them to their team members or to other people, but they were really stressed out and insecure, in some ways too. I found that as well.
okay. So aside from stressors, what were some of the other commonalities that they had in the challenges that they brought to you, that particularly that might resonate with our audience?
Well, I think one of the things that resonated, that might resonate with the audience is this notion that the executive doesn't feel the pressure from the organization that the frontline staff does. They felt that pressure, which is where the stress came from. That was
Mm,
one big thing that I saw. A lot of these folks would come in and they were, where the executives team members would say, "Oh, my boss is being unreasonable." The executives were saying the same things about their bosses too. They're being unreasonable. They're giving me these tasks to do that I don't have the resources for. Um, I'm getting, they're expressing themselves to me in a very toxic way. They were getting the same things that the executives staff were saying about the executive. So it was very interesting.
okay. So let's fast forward, and you left the organization that introduced you to executive coaching and being on the verge of being voluntold to it. And now you are an experienced executive coach. You've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the years, helping them in a number of different ways through coaching, through training, and through your consulting work. So when you are starting to engage a with a prospect or a new client, um, one of the questions that I understand that you get is about you and your background,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Um, so I'm imagining that you share that, and we'll use that as a jumping off point to talk about how to choose the right coach,
Mhm.
right? What coaching experience you have with someone like them. So you've explained your background a little bit, but you're getting this question: how do I know that you can work with someone like me? And how do you help them understand more about who you are and how you can actually help them?
Well, like you said, I go through my background. I let them know the experiences I've had, a shortened version of my resume. Just say, I tell them, hey, look, I've worked in these industries. This is what I've done. This is my progression. As to whether or not I can help them and whether or not there'll be chemistry, I let them know right off the bat that we're going to see. And when we have that initial discovery session, I let them have that. Let's go ahead and have a coaching demo, and you can see if you like my style, and if we're clicking together, and if not, feel free to find another coach. I lay that out right in the beginning.
That's a really good point, and it's something that I do as well. I will say this, I have worked with coaches, and I don't feel like I've always gotten that there is always an assumption, um, that somehow we're going to work together rather than, you know, testing. I don't know if testing is the right word, but um letting me, and both of us come to the conclusion that we're a good fit. It's sort of, I'm in the space of career management transition, and it's sort of like the process of interviewing, right? Where it's not just the company interviewing the candidate is interviewing, or should be interviewing, the company as well, to make sure that there is a good fit. So the way you go about it, and the way I go about it as well, is basically to do a demo, right? A short demo of what a session is like, so that they can experience what it's actually like to work with you.
Absolutely. Some people will sometimes come to the session and they're like, well, just tell me what to do. I don't work like that. And if they're looking for that, I am not the coach for them. I let them know. And sometimes I may not feel that, we're going to be a good fit. And I will try to make a referral to another coach that will be a better fit for that client. Because it's really about that relationship. There has to be trust in that relationship. You have to have the ability to give and receive, really good, thorough feedback. So if that's not going to be there, I'll say, hey, look, maybe we're not a good fit for each other. Let me see if I can find somebody that would work with you in the way that you would like.
This it's such a good point that, you know, trust, right? It starts there. It's a relationship. It was one of the very first things you said. It's a relationship, it's a
Yes.
partnership. And if there's not trust, if you can't communicate, if the coachee is not comfortable sharing, right, you're going to have a difficult time being able to, for them to be able to maximize the experience. And aside from letting them know that it's a partnership, and trust is important, what other ways are you helping them understand that their transparency and willingness to be open is what's going to lead them to the success that they're ultimately looking for?
Well, I do have a conversation about what success would look like, and what the responsibilities that I have as the coach, and their responsibilities as the client. That they're going to be doing the work. I'm not going to be doing the work. I have the process. They're doing the brain work. I can partner with them in that, but they're really doing the work, and they're also working in between sessions to, they may come up with a strategy during that session, but the real work begins after the session is over. And then we check back and see, okay, how did that go? So I explain that process to them to let them know, hey, this is how most clients are successful in this relationship. So I pretty much explain that to them.
So talk about what a typical coaching session looks like for you, or with you.
Well, we've already had that discovery or chemistry session, as some people call it, so they know pretty much how it's going to work out. When they get on the call with me, I will ask them what they want to work on. They're coming to me with the things that are pressing to them, and I ask that question several times, because usually executives are very busy. They're working on their day to day, and then they look at their schedule and realize, oh my goodness, I have a coaching session later on today. What I want to work on, and then they start racking their brain and they pick the most recent problem or goal that they're working on. And so I'll ask, and that usually comes up, and then I'll say, okay, what else might come up that will be helpful to work on? And I'll say, what else after that? And we usually start with a menu of 3 or so things, and I'll say, okay, out of the 3 things that you mentioned, what's the most important for us to focus on during the session? So sometimes it is that most recent thing, other times it isn't. And then we go through the session. I always have a mid-session check-in to see how things are going. And then right before the session ends, we start. Well, actually, I like to do it right around the 3/4 mark, just really looking at, okay, these are the things that we've talked about. What are the actions that we're going to forward in between the session? What's going to be your homework or your assignment? And then we look at that and we create those things that they're going to be looking to do afterward. And they come the next session, I'll ask them how things went, and then I'll check to see, how their assignment went, and we go from there.
Very similar to the process that I use. I actually, um, I'll say require, but it's a strong request that I get at least a day in advance an agenda for our session,
Mm-hmm.
because that helps them to take the time to think about and focus what they want to actually work on. And yes, it happens sometimes, just like you said, people are busy and then right, they show up. And I very rarely have someone show up and have not having given any thought
Right.
to what the challenges are and what it is they want to work on. But it has happened.
Yeah.
And part of that is, asking them to actually give it some thought ahead of time. And what I find is that when they come prepared, that we have a much more productive session. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so I think you've touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the topics that ultimately get covered in the session?
It's really interesting because, excuse me, like I tell my clients, everybody's different, and they'll whatever topic is important for them will come up. But within there are some very common themes that pop up. One that pops up a lot is time management. That pops up
Mm,
quite frequently. Managers, executives, particularly, feel like they don't have enough time to
mhm.
accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. There are things on their plate that they really can't handle. And what I found during the pandemic, or since the pandemic, what's come up a bunch of times is a lot of people are now working from home. They don't know when to stop the clock. They're always working. And so they'll be like, this is something I really want to start working on. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed out. I have a lot of work. I never stop working, and it starts to impact their personal life. The other thing that comes up is I do work with some leaders that are new in their organization is really navigating organizational culture. That is something that comes up quite often. In fact, they just had a session where we focused primarily on organizational culture. And luckily, by the end of that session, the client came up with, had a big aha moment, which will help them navigate the culture. Those are 2 huge things. Also, what typically pops up fairly often are just leadership practices. As a lot of people are promoted into leadership because they did their last job very well. We talk about this on the show a lot, but they don't know how to be an effective leader. This is something that I study a lot. And so I have resources that I share with them that allow them to put those things into practice.
So I love that there are common themes. Time management, right? You already talked about stressors, and so I think it's helpful for the audience to know, particularly if you are not currently working with a coach, that while what you are experiencing unique to you, there are some commonalities, right? There are some themes, and you're not in this alone. So thinking that you might be the only one who's struggling with time management. When I'm training, that I would say that's one of the big challenges that I hear from managers in the training is that they don't have the time, right, to either address their own personal development,
Yep.
or they don't have time to be a little more proactive in their interactions and engagement, and the work that they do with their direct reports. And so they're always struggling trying to figure out where to find time, how to make time, and then they're stressed about not doing that because regardless of what skills someone brings to the table when they get promoted into a position of management or leadership, right? Most of them want to do a good job,
Hmm.
and it's a matter of trying to juggle all the balls in order to make that happen.
Absolutely.
So covered what gets covered in sessions, the content of those sessions. And you said in your list of frequently asked questions, they ask what kinds of issues can you discuss, right? So there are the things that you do discuss, but they ask about what they can discuss.
Yeah, they do.
Is there a thought that there are things that are off limits, off the table?
Yeah,
What's that question about?
well, that question's about two things. Can I talk about my personal stuff?
Mm,
Can I complain about my boss? And that touches on two things: confidentiality and the fact that I coach the whole person. And I have these. I tell them your sessions are yours. They're for you. And certainly, I explain to them you may be experiencing something in your personal life that is impacting how you do
yeah.
your job, and vice versa. So we have that discussion. And then I tell them you can say anything in your session. I tell them that I operate by Vegas rules. What's said in Vegas stays in Vegas. I function, and of course we are both have to adhere to the ICF standard of confidentiality,
Yeah.
and I make that very well known. I have had, I'll be honest with you, I've had sponsors that have asked me, and sponsors the people that put the person through coaching, to say, "Oh, can you tell me what they talked about?" And I go, "No." And so what I do is I speak to that client and say, "Look, there may come a time when your boss or whoever sponsored them may want feedback. I encourage them to set up regular feedback sessions with that person and talk about the coaching with them directly. That way, it removes me from the middle. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm involved in that." And we go about it that way. So I say, I highly recommend you do that. I've had some situations where that wasn't possible, and I will have a conversation with that client, and I'll say, listen, your sponsor wants to talk to me. I know you said that you don't want to be involved in that. What topics would you like me to say? What do you want me to talk about in that conversation? And I only stick to those things that the client gives me the okay for. So those are two different ways I handle that.
Yeah, I've had that experience as well, and I've just made it clear I will not talk about specifics.
Mhm.
We can talk about the generalities
Yes.
of, what's happening in terms of progress and addressing like big ticket items, but we're not going to get into specifics of that. So I think it's really important that we reiterate if you are thinking about coaching, hiring a coach. I think a point Robert made is both of us have been trained um, through and are certified through ICF, the International Coaching Federation. Every coach is not, right? And that is not to say that some coaches that don't have that training aren't really good coaches, but there's a standard, right, that we are abiding by that comes along with not just the training, but the ongoing professionalism of the work that we do, and confidentiality is one
Yeah,
of those.
yeah, absolutely.
So, I've never I've never used the phrase "what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and what
Vegas rules.
happens in coaching stays in coaching," but the point remains. I might have to use that.
I say Vegas rules. Come on and say what you got to say.
That I love that. Okay, so you sort of tied that in with the kinds of things that we discuss. Uh, I want to go back to your point about coaching the whole person. It's so very important. Understanding that our lives, even whatever we are attempting to achieve, work life balance, harmony, integration, whatever you want to call it, there is no separation, but there can be a prioritization, I would say. And again, this is one of those things that goes to time management, priority management, boundary management, and exploring the yeah, one's ability to identify what's important to them and then to protect those things that are important to them, right? And therefore, since there is no what happened, most of us, even if we think we're good at compartmentalizing, are probably not as good at compartmentalizing as we think. And so there is this ebb and flow between the two. And so a couple of things, getting a handle on that, really important, right? Identifying that that may be why you're behaving in a particular way. And sometimes, right, we don't recognize that something else outside of what we're doing in the moment is having an impact on what's happening in the moment. And I can't think of how many times, I've asked the question and someone will go, "Oh, I didn't realize that was either bothering me or having an impact on my work, or that work was having an impact in my life." And I think I've shared this story before. I was going through a period of time in a prior working experience, and very unhappy, and I was coming home complaining about
Hmm.
it. Um, and my husband, who I think technically at the time was not my husband yet, said, "Do something about it. Stop complaining." It's like, stop complaining or do something,
Hmm.
right? And I was like, "Oh, ooh, right?" And because it was having a negative impact, not so much on him, but I was just like bringing that negative energy everywhere I was going, and I hadn't realized that that was happening. So, I think that's one of those things, whether it's a coach or someone in your life that you trust, right? That can point out things that you're not seeing yourself, which is what I think is really important about having a coach. You have a coach, I have a coach, I have a couple of coaches, mastermind groups that I'm a part of, and it is through these opportunities that we get to see things that are helpful for us in moving the ball forward in our game of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, do most of your clients come to you on their own, or are they sent to you by their organizations,
They
or
usually,
some combination?
it's a combination, but most of the time they're being sent to me uh, by their organization. And that in and of itself is a different dynamic than if they come to me on their own. When they come to me on
Mm,
their
mhm,
own, they're looking to, up level their skill most of the time. Usually, when companies send them to me, there's a developmental reason why. Not all the time,
Mm,
but it can be. And so that's a different kind of conversation that I have with that client, especially if they're concerned, if they've been sent to me for developmental reasons or performance reasons. Um, there are a couple of things that I will suggest to them as their coach, especially when it comes to, hey, my organization gave me a list of things they want to see improvement on. And it's like, the first thing is, okay, what does improvement mean to them? Right? Because people, as you know, are very generic with some of the terms they
yeah.
use. Okay, I want to see improvement. Okay, what's the measurement? How will you measure improvement? That's a conversation that we have. And then one of the big ones is for them to get feedback from that person after the coaching. So here are the things I went to coaching on, or even during the coaching, right? So, you sent me to coaching. Here are the things you wanted me to work on. How are you seeing my performance now? Is it getting better? uh, are there other things that I need to work on? Is it getting worse? I don't see how that doesn't happen with coaching most of the time, but really getting that feedback. And then the other thing that I really impart to them is, okay, you've gotten that feedback from your manager. You've been working on this thing. Now, how are you going to show them that you've actually improved?
Mm,
Because you could be the best, fill in the blank, you can be the best, basketball player, the best free thrower, whatever you want to, put in there, the best swimmer, you can have the best butterfly stroke, breaststroke. No one sees you. It doesn't matter to them. So it's really, how are you going to let this person who has this concern see your improvement? That is really key.
you know, you mentioned clarity on goals. So two things sort of struck me is one, that importance of them getting clear on goals and what that looks like, right? That the metric that's going to be used for measuring whether or not they've achieved the goals. And often what we're talking about is difficult to quantify,
Mhm.
right? And so you know someone sent to you to help them improve their communications or
Mhm.
their leadership skills. And your question is, what does that mean to you? Right? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to your organization? How are we going to measure that? Because I get the sense, at least in working with my clients, and you can tell me if this is similar for you, is that somehow they're looking for me to sort of tell them when they have succeeded. I was like, I can't tell you that, right? You determine what success is, right? And we actually have some time. We spend some time talking about, what does success look like? What does it feel like? Right? Or how to do the best we can to quantify that so that they will know that, one, they're making progress, is because making progress is what keeps them engaged in the coaching process. If someone feels like they're not making progress, they're less likely to show up sort of motivated. And I'm saying that in air quotes, because it's not all about motivation, it has to be about discipline.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier, you're not doing the work. The coach is not doing the work, right? The client has to do the work.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Two things popped up. You'd be surprised how many times that a client will thank me for the work that they've done. I go, no, I didn't do anything. I coached you. You did the work. When they get so happy when they're
Yes.
able to achieve, they're like, I want to thank. I go, I appreciate that, but it wouldn't have happened if you didn't do the work. So I always make sure that I uh, reflect that back on them. The other thing is, you would be surprised at how many managers have come to me and said, how is my client do how is that my employee doing? And I go, I don't work with them every day. Only you can answer that question, right? They'll say, well, I go, how are they doing in the coaching? I go, well, they show up and they do the work. If you want me to give them performance feedback, and you'd be shocked, there are some that will ask me to do that, and I don't do that. I go, I don't work with that person day to day. I don't know what projects they're working on. I don't know what annual goals they have. You know that. Only you can adjudicate that. And I actually had a manager that pushed back, and I said, okay, let me explain it to you this way, because there were other issues. They didn't want to have that one. They were intimidated by their own employee, and the employee was fantastic. Wasn't it?
Sounds more like the manager needed the coaching.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we're having the conversation, and I said, and they were pushing back, and I said, okay, so what you're saying to me is you would like me to take your power from you
Mm.
and be your proxy. I said, if I were to do that, I can't give that power back to you. Once you cede that power, your employee is never going to look at you as credible again, because you are, tacitly saying, I don't feel confident to do this, so I'm giving it to somebody else to do. And
Mm.
once I said it that way, they were like, oh, okay. And then I actually showed them how to give that feedback. So it was very interesting, and they didn't know how to give feedback, which goes back to one of the first things they said. A lot of people get promoted because they did their last job very well,
Yeah.
not because they're good at managing people. And so, and I think we've also talked about that on another episode. One of the best things that anyone can do, one of the most cost-effective things that anyone can do when they are promoted, is get a book and read it. Because you're not going to learn. Probably you can learn some things on the job. That's a trial by fire. You can. Some people learn best that way. Very few people do. Get some education. It's get a book, read some articles, try some things out, get a coach. If you have the means to do that, somebody who or a mentor, somebody who has been where you are, and they
Yeah.
can help you. But do something that's going to help you learn how to manage and lead people.
So I think that we've covered the questions, and we sort of dovetailed in and out of the various questions. We can put the specific questions in a something. We can do an FAQ on this for you guys. But this is I think the last question that comes up is about meeting cadence and how the meetings are held and preferred modes of communication. And you talked about homework, and that the work is done between sessions. What does that look like, and are there opportunities to stay connected in between sessions?
Usually, with my clients, we work every other week. So we meet every other week. So we're going to meet on
Okay.
one week, and then they'll have an assignment. They'll work on that assignment. They'll try it out the week we aren't coaching, and then they come back to coaching, and then we talk about how it went. So it's every other week. That's the typical cadence. I have worked with coaches and no coaches, colleagues of mine, that meet with people once a month for 90 minutes. They do that. So it really depends, because they may be working with the CEO that's really, really busy. They may meet with that person face to face to do those things, because that person is giving a presentation that's really, really
Mm.
important. I've done those types of things as well. But mostly right now, what I have are clients that come to me biweekly. How they can reach me in between, I usually have packages, because certain people, they just want the coaching. They want the coaching. That's it. They don't need to meet with me in between. Some people, they'll say, you know what, I would like the coaching, and I would like to meet with you occasionally. And so it's usually, I have packages. It's usually, tier 3 packages. There is no in between. You come to coaching,
Mm.
and we do that. Tier 2, you coaching, and in between the coaching, you can contact me by text, email, or by phone one time. And the tier one program, it's unlimited. The funny thing is, when people have those programs, they don't really, they're not blowing me up and every day and calling me. It's only when they really need it. So I offer those things. And to be honest with you, even if it's not built into that package, I'm not going to turn anybody down if they reach out to me. I ignore them. But that's usually how I structure it.
It's interesting you say that, because I've talked to coaches who have said that they don't make themselves available between sessions, for, I think, out of fear that they'll be inundated. And what I have found is pretty similar to yours. I tell all my clients, if something happens and you need me, reach out. I can probably count on one hand the number of times people have reached out. Not because, and here's the really interesting thing, not because they don't have things that come up. Mostly there is a story that they're telling themselves about bothering, right? I'm not used to asking for help. And it's like, well, that's what that's what this coaching is, right? I'm here helping you. But they're feeling like, if I reach out to you in between, I'm bothering you. And so I let them know, one, I'm really good at boundary management. And so if you are reaching out, if I get a text from a client, like I said, very rarely. If I get a text from a client, I said, I will let you know if it's something that I can answer by text real quickly, I'll answer it. If it's something that's going to require more time or a phone call, we'll schedule it, right? I'm not going to stop in the middle of dinner in order to do this. So I let them know that they are free to reach out to me, and I am going to be responsive with how I can be available to them. But they don't need to work, there's like this feeling they have to protect my boundaries. Or they don't have to protect my boundaries. I'm really good. I'm really good at it.
I usually tell people I get back to them within 24 to 48 hours. If it's an emergency, let me know and I'll get back to them as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's setting those boundaries. And I've never had anybody that was a problem, that would just inundate me with text messages or phone calls. I've never had that. I have had some people that have taken advantage of that and have contacted me in between. It's always been very appropriate and professional. I've never had anybody that's, like bombarding me with questions or things like that.
I don't feel like people are. I think that for the most part, clients are very respectful. And because I mostly because I think they appreciate what we do for them, and they don't want to lose out on that. So, any final thoughts? Any questions that you get, that you think of, or questions that you have for clients that you have? We talked mostly the frequently asked questions that you are asked. What about the kinds of things that you ask your clients?
The things I ask my client, because this is interesting. Usually my questions are getting answered through their interactions with me. So I don't usually have any questions that I ask the clients other than, how is this going for you? Does this seem like something that is working for you? Is there anything you'd like me to adjust? Because my style can be adjusted. I like to think that I'm flexible enough for that. So I usually don't have too many questions that I ask the client, especially after we've decided or they've decided that we're a good fit. I should say we decided that it's a good fit and we have that rapport. I do ask them in the beginning, the discovery phase or the contracting phase. I'll ask them questions like, what kind of accountability do you want when we're designing those interactions? Do you want really strict accountability? Do you want me to back off for you all the way? Do you want it someplace in the middle? I ask those kinds of questions. How should I handle it if you don't complete an assignment? Do you want me to just be like, okay? Do you want me to like press you on it? So that way we set up right away. We
Mm-hmm.
set up right away. Hey, this is how I want to, they're telling me this is how I want to be addressed, or how I want you to point out things to me. The other thing that we do in the very beginning, I'll tell them, I give them some things like, I may interrupt you. I know your time is important. You're an executive. So I let them know these things that they may experience during the sessions with me. So they know that if they're telling me a story and it's going on and on and on, if I interrupt them, they know why I'm interrupting them. Hey, look, I know you're very busy and you have a serious issue that you're trying to overcome. This is why I'm interrupting you. So usually the questions I have for them are usually answered by their behavior and our interaction.
Great, great. All right. So, as we wrap up this conversation on executive coaching, we hope that you've gained some valuable insight into how this personalized development process can transform your leadership journey and propel you forward, right? That's what we're about here, helping you on your leadership journey. So, whether you're looking to enhance your leadership skills, navigate career transitions, right? The promotion aspect of this, or tackle some specific professional challenges, executive coaching offers a tailored approach to achieving your goals and unlocking your full potential as a leader and as a whole person. We have that in common, Robert, but I love the way you express that, right? You're coaching the whole person. And we've covered a lot of ground today, right? From understanding what executive coaching is to exploring the types of goals and challenges that you are likely to address. Remember, the right coach can be a catalyst for remarkable change, providing you with the tools, strategies, and support you need to excel in your leadership role. So, if today's conversation has sparked interest, and we hope that it has, and you want to explore executive coaching further, we're here to help you take the next step. And so, if you feel like you want to connect with Robert and you like his style, his leadership and coaching philosophy, or just want to learn more about how he can support you with your executive coaching needs, Robert, how would someone get in touch with you?
They can reach out to me at inspire me at roberthilliardcoaching.com, or they can just go to the website, Robert Hilliard Coaching, and fill out that form that's in there. And that's that contact me form. Tell me what you're working on, what goals you have, what challenges you are facing. And we can have that discovery call and we'll work some things out and help you get on the path to achieving your goals or overcoming those challenges.
We love that. We love that. Robert is awesome. He's a great coach. If you are looking for an executive coach, please reach out to him. Um, in addition to Robert, right, there are other coaches out there, and I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
it's not Robert and you're looking for someone from this show, I would be that person. You can reach me at shiftingintoaction.now.site. We are going to be talking next week about career coaching. And we'll talk about the differences between executive coaching, career coaching. There's some similarities, there's some differences. We'll talk about those, and we'll maybe touch on some other kinds of coaching that, while again, Robert's branded as an executive coach, there are other kinds of coaching that he can do if you're interested. And while I brand myself mostly as a career management and transition coach, there are other ways that I can help you, mostly because we have this the approach of the whole person, right? That none of these things are mutually exclusive.
Correct.
So um, reach out to either of us, both of us, and let's see how we can support you in navigating the complexities of leadership and helping you achieve your personal professional best. So the bottom line here is to take action. Don't let another day go by without taking a step towards your leadership potential. So, we want to thank you for joining us here on the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. We're honored that you have allowed us to be a part of your leadership journey and look forward to connecting with you. Again, if you are watching this on a replay, drop your comments in the chat. We will be responsive to them. And if you are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you will know when we are coming to you live on that platform. So, again, thank you for being here. Thursdays, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And with that, until next time, keep leading with courage and compassion. And we'll see you in the next episode of the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. Till next time, take care.
Bye now.